What if the final breath of a shepherd could ignite a flame that burns through the darkness of a fractured world? Can a frail voice trembling on the edge of eternity silence the clamor of war with a whisper of peace? How could a man of such humility rewrite the ancient rites of death, leaving the eternal city in tears? What secrets did Pope Francis carry as he crossed the threshold from this life to the next? Are you ready to hear the last words of a pontiff whose love for the broken will echo through the ages? In the heart of Rome, a sacred silence descends heavy with the weight of a divine departure. The bells of St. Peter's toll their mournful song, a lament for a shepherd called home. The air in St. Peter's Square is thick with the scent of ancient stone, and the faint perfume of spring blossoms carried on a breeze that whispers through the cobblestones, as if the city itself mourns. The sky above, painted in hues of gold and violet, casts a celestial glow over the basilica's dome, a sentinel of eternity standing watch over a grieving flock. The murmurs of the faithful rise like a tide, their voices trembling with sorrow, their hands clutching rosaries as they gather beneath the shadow of the cross, their eyes glistening with tears that reflect the dawn's first light. Shadows stretch long across the square, as if the earth itself reaches for the divine, while the distant echo of a choir's hymn weaves through the air, a haunting melody that speaks of resurrection and loss. What does it mean to lose a shepherd whose heart beat for the forgotten, whose final words were a plea for peace in a world torn asunder? On the morning of April 21st, 2025, the Eternal City awoke to a sorrow that pierced the heart of the faithful Pope. Francis, the 266th shepherd of the Catholic Church, had returned to the house of the Father, his earthly journey ending at the age of 88. The announcement, delivered by Cardinal Farrell with a voice heavy with grief, sent a tremor through the Vatican, a ripple of mourning that stretched across the globe. Just hours before, on Easter Sunday, Francis had stood before tens of thousands in this very square, his frail form a testament to the trials of his final days, his spirit unbroken as he delivered a message that would become his last, a clarion call for peace in a world scarred by conflict. Easter Sunday had dawned with a brilliance that seemed to herald hope, the square awash with the faithful who had gathered to celebrate the resurrection of Christ. The air was alive with the scent of incense and the sound of hymns, the voices of the pilgrims rising in a chorus that echoed the joy of the risen Lord. Francis, seated in his wheelchair, his hands trembling with the weight of his years, had been driven through the crowd in his Pope mobile, a chariot of humility amidst the grandeur of the Vatican. The faithful pressed close, their faces alight with devotion, their hands outstretched in reverence. Francis paused to bless the children, brought to him his smile a beacon of warmth in the cool spring air, his eyes glistening with a tenderness that spoke of a love that transcended his physical frailty. His Easter message, delivered through an aide as he sat watching, was a testament to the heart that had defined his papacy. Let us quench the great thirst for death that plagues our world. He urged, his words a whisper carried by the wind, a plea for peace in Gaza and Ukraine, where the cries of the innocent echoed through the rubble of war. He spoke of the starving, their hollow eyes a silent accusation against a world that had forgotten them, and called for a future where freedom of religion, thought, and expression could flourish. He pleaded for aid to those who aspired to a future of peace, his voice a balm for a world torn asunder by division, his words a final offering of hope in a season of resurrection. These were his last public words, a summation of a life devoted to the marginalized and a legacy that would endure long after his voice fell silent. The joy of Easter Sunday, however, gave way to the sorrow of Easter Monday, as the Vatican announced the pontiff's passing at 7:35 a.m. The news struck like a thunderbolt, leaving the faithful reeling, their hearts heavy with a grief that could not be contained. Reports from the streets of Rome described scenes of raw emotion, pilgrims running towards St. Peter's Square, their faces streaked with tears, their voices breaking as they whispered prayers for the soul of their beloved shepherd. The BBC correspondent David Giglione captured the moment with haunting clarity, noting the sight of people openly weeping in the streets, their sorrow a testament to the profound impact Francis had made on their lives. The pontiff's health had been a shadow over his final days, a burden he bore with the quiet strength that had defined his papacy. Since February, he had battled pneumonia in both lungs, a condition made worse by the partial lung removal he had undergone as a young man in Argentina. The frailty of his body was evident to all who saw him, his wheelchair a constant companion, his hands trembling as he raised them in blessing. Yet few expected his death to come so swiftly, so soon after his public appearance on Easter Sunday. The faithful had clung to hope, their prayers a shield against the inevitable. But the divine had called Francis home, his earthly mission complete. Jorge Mario Bergoglio's journey to the papacy was a tapestry of the unexpected, a story that began in the bustling streets of Buenos Aires and ended in the hallowed halls of the Vatican, born to Italian immigrants fleeing the shadow of fascism. He had lived a life of humble beginnings, working as a nightclub bouncer and chemical technician, before answering the call to the priesthood. His path through the Jesuit order was marked by a steadfast commitment to the poor, a commitment that would define his papacy. When he was elected as the 266th Pope in 2013, he became the first non-European pontiff in nearly 300 years, the first from the Americas and the first Jesuit to occupy the throne of St. Peter. From the moment he took the name Francis after the saint of the poor, he set out to redefine the papacy. He rejected the opulence of the traditional papal apartments, choosing instead to live in the simplicity of the Vatican guest house. His room a modest space where he could hear the footsteps of the faithful passing by. He washed the feet of prisoners, their faces etched with the scars of a hard life, their eyes wide with disbelief as the vicar of Christ knelt before them. He embraced the disfigured, their hands trembling as he held them close, his touch a reminder of their dignity in the eyes of God. He spoke fiercely for the poor, the migrants, the forgotten, his voice a clarion call that echoed across the globe, a beacon of hope in a world that so often turned away. The timing of his death in the sacred season of Easter, and during a Jubilee year when millions of pilgrims were expected to seek forgiveness in Rome, added a layer of poignancy to an already solemn moment. The faithful, their hearts heavy with grief, gathered in St. Peter's Square, their prayers rising like incense to the heavens, their voices a chorus of sorrow and hope. The bells of the basilica told their mournful song, a lament for a shepherd who had given his life to the service of the divine, a man whose final words were a plea for peace in a world torn asunder by conflict. What does it mean to mourn a shepherd whose life was a bridge between heaven and earth, whose legacy calls us to build bridges in a world of walls? The legacy of Pope Francis was not one of grandeur, but of humility, a testament to a life lived in service to the divine and the downtrodden. His papacy spanning 11 years was a revolution of the heart, a call to the church to step beyond its walls and into the margins of society, to embrace those whom the world had cast aside. He championed the cause of the poor, his voice a beacon of hope for those who had none, his hands outstretched to those society deemed untouchable. His advocacy for migrants, for the environment, for peace in a world torn by conflict was a reflection of a faith that saw the divine in every soul, a faith that sought to build bridges where others built walls. Francis's death triggered a series of ancient traditions, rituals that had remained largely unchanged for centuries until he rewrote them with the same humility that had defined his life. In the past, the death of a pope was marked by elaborate ceremonies, a testament to the grandeur of the office. The Camerlengo, the Chamberlain of the Holy Roman Church, would verify the Pope's death by calling his baptismal name 3 times, awaiting a response that would never come. The Fisherman's Ring, a symbol of papal authority, would be destroyed, marking the end of his reign. The body would be embalmed and placed on a raised platform, a catafalque, in St. Peter's Basilica for public viewing before being buried in 3 nested coffins. Cypress, lead, and oak, each layer a symbol of the papal office. But Francis, true to his lifelong simplicity, had other plans. He approved a less elaborate funeral, a reflection of the humility that had guided his papacy. He chose a single wooden coffin lined with zinc, rejecting the traditional 3 coffins that had marked the burials of his predecessors. He eliminated the catafalque, opting instead to remain inside the coffin with the lid removed, allowing mourners to pay their respects in a manner that felt intimate, personal, a final act of closeness to the people he had served. Perhaps most strikingly, Francis became the first pope in over a century to be buried outside the Vatican, choosing the Basilica of St. Mary Major as his final resting place, a choice that reflected his deep devotion to Mary and his desire to remain connected to the people of Rome even in death. The Basilica of St. Mary Major, nestled in the heart of the city, stands as a beacon of accessibility, its doors open to all who wish to pay their respects. It is a fitting resting place for a pope who had always pushed the church to go beyond its walls, to serve those on the margins, to be a presence of love in a world that's so often turned away. The air within the basilica is heavy with the scent of candles and ancient stone, the light filtering through stained glass windows, casting a mosaic of colors across the marble floor, as if heaven itself mourns the loss of its servant. The faithful gather here, their prayers a whisper that rises to the heavens, their hands touching the wooden coffin in a final act of devotion, their hearts heavy with the weight of loss, yet alight with the hope that Francis's legacy inspires. What does it mean to rest in the heart of a city, to be a shepherd whose love for the people endures even in death? As news of Francis's death spread, the world responded with a chorus of tributes, a testament to the global impact of a man who had transcended the boundaries of faith and politics. Leaders from every corner of the earth, regardless of their beliefs, recognized the profound influence he had wielded. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen spoke of his humility, a love so pure for the less fortunate that it inspired millions far beyond the Catholic Church. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who had known him personally, called him a friend, noting his call for the world to find the courage to change direction. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, who had met Francis just hours before his death, expressed his sorrow for the millions of Christians who loved him, their hearts heavy with loss. The Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, remembered Francis as a holy man who was also deeply human-witty, lively a presence that brought joy to all who knew him. In the days following his death, the College of Cardinals gathered in Rome, their crimson robes a stark contrast to the somber mood that hung over the city. After a 9-day period of mourning, they would enter the Sistine Chapel, a sacred space where the walls themselves seemed to whisper the weight of history, to begin the conclave, a process as ancient as the church itself. Sequestered beneath Michelangelo's frescoes, the cardinals would remain until a new pope was chosen, their decision marked by the billowing of white smoke from the chapel's chimney, followed by the cry that would echo across the square, "Habemus Papam, we have a pope." The new pontiff would face a daunting task, following in the footsteps of a man who had transformed the papacy with his humility and love. Francis's legacy was not one of power, but of service, a call to the church to be a beacon of hope in a world that so often turned to despair. His final Easter message, delivered on the eve of his death, was a summation of this legacy, a plea for peace, for compassion, for care for the most vulnerable. He had called the church to build bridges, not walls, to remember those at the margins, to be a presence of love in a world that so often turned away. The air in St. Peter's Square grows still, the scent of blossoms fading as the stars begin to pierce the velvet sky. The faithful stand in silence their prayers, a whisper that rises to the heavens, their hearts heavy with grief, yet alight with hope. The bells toll once more their mournful song, a final farewell to a shepherd who gave his life to the service of the divine, a man whose legacy will endure as a testament to the power of love, of humility, of peace. Francis's life was a reflection of the divine order, a call to live in harmony with the sacred laws that govern both heaven and earth. His death, though a moment of sorrow, is also a moment of awakening, a summons to the faithful to carry forward his mission, to be a light in the darkness, a voice for the voiceless, a bridge in a world of walls. The Basilica of St. Mary Major stands as a testament to his legacy, its doors open to all its walls, echoing with the prayers of those who seek to honor his memory. What does it mean to carry the torch of a shepherd whose light will never fade, to walk in the path of a pontiff whose love for the broken will echo through eternity? The legacy of Pope Francis is a celestial flame that burns through the ages, a whisper from eternity that calls us to serve with humility, to love with abandon, to build bridges in a world of walls. His life was a testament to the divine order, a reflection of a faith that saw the sacred in every soul, a call to live in harmony with the eternal laws that govern both heaven and earth in the Basilica of St. Mary Major, where the air is heavy with the scent of wax and prayer. His presence endures a beacon for all who seek to walk. In his footsteps, a reminder of a shepherd who knelt before the broken, who lived as a servant in the shadow of the divine. The Sistine Chapel, where the Cardinals now gather, stands as a crucible of history, its walls bearing the weight of centuries, its frescoes a testament to the divine plan. The air within is thick with the scent of ancient wood, and the faint echo of prayers, the light filtering through the windows, casting a glow across the faces of the Cardinals. Their eyes fixed on the future, their hearts heavy with the past. The conclave, a sacred ritual as old as the church itself, is a moment of transition, a moment when the divine speaks through the voices of men, when the white smoke will rise a sign of hope in a world that mourns. Francis's legacy is a call to the new pontiff, a summons to continue the work of peace, to serve the marginalized, to live with the humility that defined his papacy. The faithful gathered in the square below wait in silence their prayers, a whisper that rises to the heavens, their hearts alight with the hope of a new dawn. The stars above burn with a light that feels eternal, their glow a silent promise of the divine, a promise that the light of Francis's love will endure, a flame that will guide the church through the storms of the future, a whisper of peace that will echo through the ages. What does it mean to live in the light of a shepherd whose love knew no bounds, to walk in the path of a pontiff whose legacy is a call to the eternal one?